The conflict in Sudan between the Sudanese armed forces led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitary force known as Rapid Support Force under the leadership of Hemeti has entered its third week. More than 528 people have been killed since the war began on April 15, and 4,600 have been injured. There seems to be no willingness from the two sides to stop the fighting. The rival generals, once allies, continue to play the blame game, accusing each other of targeting civilian neighborhoods. Multiple ceasefire promises have collapsed. Thousands of foreign citizens have been evacuated during the unstable three-day ceasefire agreed between the two military forces. People are running out of food, medicine, and fuel. Citizens are leaving everything behind them and fleeing the capital, Khartoum. So, in this video, I will talk about the humanitarian crisis heading to a catastrophic situation in Sudan and how the conflict has been escalating to other regions in Sudan that could lead to a bloody civil war. I also will speak about the ousted government officials of Omar al-Bashir that have been freed from prison. I will explain how this could play in the current conflict in Sudan. So, according to the UN, tens of thousands have been internally displaced in Sudan since the start of the conflict on April 15, 2023. Out of the 7 countries that border Sudan, it is estimated that over 20,000 have fled to neighboring Chad. According to the UN prediction, the number of people fleeing Sudan to Chad could reach 100,000. So far, around 48,000 other Sudanese have also fled to South Sudan, with the UN predicting the number could reach up to 120,000 people fleeing to South Sudan and Egypt. Those citizens must pay hundreds of dollars to reach those borders from the capital Khartoum. Others with less ability to afford to flee from the capital city end up in internal displacement in Sudan, where the conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary has not yet reached. The main ground of the battle is in the capital city of Khartoum. The Sudanese army, which has military power over the Rapid Support Force, has used fighter jets to target the Rapid Support Force. On the other hand, the RSF has been using anti-aircraft weapons to fight back. While all the fighting is happening in the capital, authorities have freed some government officials from the ousted government from Khartoum prison. This happened during a jail inmates protest for food and water. Both rivals blame each other for releasing political prisoners. One of the freed officials from the old regime was Ahmed Harun. He was the leader of the government's National Congress Party and one of several senior Sudanese officials arrested in 2019 after a popular revolt and military takeover that brought down the government of former President Omar al-Bashir. The International Criminal Court has charged Harun with more than 40 war crimes and crimes against humanity that he is accused of committing in Darfur in the early 2000s. The charges included killing, raping, torturing, attacking people, and destroying property. This shows that Ahmed Harun had cooperated with the Rapid Support Forces known as Janjaweed back then. The Janjaweed forces are also accused of committing genocide in Darfur in the early 2000s. Ahmed Harun also served as Sudan's State Minister for the Interior and later State Minister for Humanitarian Affairs. As I have mentioned in my previous video about the conflict in Sudan, political parties have a long history in Sudan of taking part in military coups. By the way, if you want to understand the current conflict in Sudan, please check the video on the top to my right. I will put a link down below. So, what if the old regime had a hand in orchestrating this conflict? Because the two rivals have worked under the ousted government of Omar al-Bashir, and they have been deeply influenced by the old regime's political ideologies. Time will undoubtedly tell whether political parties are involved in this military civil war. Furthermore, the ousted president Omar al-Bashir was said to have managed to escape from prison. However, according to the Sudanese armed forces, Omar al-Bashir is still held at a military hospital in Omdurman, west of Khartoum. The conflict between the two generals has reignited the two-decade-old war in Darfur. It has been reported that dozens have been killed in a tribal conflict in West Darfur. The Darfur crisis began on April 25, 2003, when the Sudanese Liberation Movement attacked Sudanese military soldiers at the Al-Fashir airport in North Darfur. As the conflict between the rebel groups and the military continued in the following years, hundreds of thousands of people were killed and millions more were forced to flee their homes. During the conflict's start, the Janjaweed, now known as the Rapid Support Force, committed genocide in Darfur. The Janjaweed collaborated with Sudanese government forces to execute the African Fur, Masalit, and Zaghawa ethnic groups from where the rebel organization's members originate. The leader of the Rapid Support Force, General Hameti, was one of the leaders of the Janjaweed during the genocide in Darfur. Interestingly enough, even General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan participated in the committing of the genocide in Darfur. In the early 2000s, he was a military intelligence colonel at the time, and he was accused of being one of the military men who planned to kill civilians and burn villages in Darfur. Now, the two rival generals were allies in committing crimes in Darfur. In 2020, after the overthrow of Omar al-Bashir, a peace agreement was signed between the rebel groups and the Sudanese government to end the nearly 20 years old conflict in Darfur. The deal calls for demobilizing rebel forces and incorporating their soldiers into the National Defense Force. So, if the situation in Khartoum between the two generals does not stop and find a peaceful solution, then with the reawakening of the Darfur conflict, Sudan will head to a bloody civil war. I hope the two generals come to their senses and resolve the situation with talks. And let us pray for Sudan. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell to get notified of the new videos. Thank you again.